People have some strange addictions, and they actually made a show about it. And while you may be tempted to laugh, hear me out and my points first before going to judge. Be-whoop.
My name is Nathaniel. I'm 27 years old. And I'm in a serious relationship with my car.
Interesting.
Morning, baby.
It's a pretty car, I'm not gonna lie. I'm digging the color.
It was love at first sight. His body and then his interior and everything just together just seemed to fit. And I just felt an instant connection.
You know, this objectophilia seems like it runs in a similar pattern as animism, where someone believes that an inanimate object has a spirit that is living on, and that's why they fall in love with it.
Nathaniel's relationship with Chase goes beyond dates and presents.
We have our times when we get sexual.
Does that feel good?
There has been some research that has showed a sexual gratification or objectification of inanimate objects does sometimes run in a similar course also with autism. So I don't know if autism was in fact diagnosed in this case.
Stanley might be 31 years old, but for the past 18 years, he has gone to remarkable lengths to remain young at heart. Very young.
Okay, I understand if you're watching at home and you're quick to judge this gentleman and say, wow, this is clearly a disorder. Wait, the way we decide in medicine, in healthcare, whether or not something is a disorder is based on the patient's own life. If the patient is not having an issue maintaining a job, maintaining healthy social connections, maintaining a relationship, if all these major developmental aspects of life are normal, this is not a disorder. We have to be very careful with our definitions here.
And he doesn't just talk the baby talk. He dedicates 8 hours a day role-playing as a toddler.
That's an important fact to hear, because if you have to dedicate 8 hours of the day to do this, can you maintain a job? Can you maintain social connections?
It's a feeling of being safe, something I didn't have when I was growing up. And being an adult baby became my way of coping with the world and my own problems.
Humans are great at finding unique coping mechanisms. This works for him, something else may work for you. Just we have to make the decision together with a patient and a doctor whether or not that coping mechanism is A, appropriate for who you are, and B, whether or not it is distracting or detracting from your everyday life.
Stanley has even tried baby formula, but like every other toddler, he can be extremely selective.
I mean, baby food like that is basically just like mashed up fruits, so it's not like the end of the world eating that. But like baby formula, breast milk, all that really high fat content, you really have to be careful.
I don't have any broken bones, but I'm addicted to putting orthopedic casts on my body.
What?
I'm perfectly fine, perfectly healthy. I like the feeling of the cast around me.
Just wear a compression sleeve.
I've done like 2 full arm casts, 2 full leg casts. I've done 2 full leg casts and an arm cast. I've put on so many different casts, it's ridiculous.
He just wants to be cuddled, I get it. I need that too sometimes. I just don't go all the way to getting a cast done, but like sometimes I do that with the blanket and then I lay on top of it so I feel like I can't get out. It's like being swaddled.
I was 12 years old, I broke my arm rollerblading and I got my first cast. I got a lot of attention with a cast on. And it's just kind of been an ongoing process ever since then.
That is a medical diagnosis, actually. People who feign illness in order to get attention or sympathy, that needs to be obviously diagnosed and addressed if that's the case.
My name is Dave Gracer, and I'm obsessed with eating bugs.
Initial impression of mine is this might not be so bad because bugs are actually kind of nutritious.
He has eaten more than 5,000 bugs over the past 11 years.
Does he keep track of the numbers of bugs? That's interesting.
When it comes to getting bugs, you gotta kill them, and there's a variety of ways of doing that. I prefer freezing them because you go to sleep. So I think it's the most humane way.
You don't just go to sleep. You're viciously cold and then you go to sleep. It's not like he's giving them a paralytic agent to knock them out and then freezing them.
David's interest in eating insects just kept getting bigger.
Grasshopper, grasshopper, grasshopper.
And bigger.
Fly pupa, cicada.
And bigger.
Scorpion tastes kind of like this weird plastic.
And you enjoy eating weird plastic? Like, I want to know his explanation. I have follow-up questions.
I started going into the woods and getting my own bugs, and I think the first ones I found was a whole log full of carpenter ants. And I tried those.
Ants are very rich in protein. Ants, grasshoppers, like grasshoppers almost have the same amount of protein per 100 grams as red meat does.
When he wants something more exotic, he goes to his personal supermarket, the pet store. Today he is picking up a specially ordered bug he has never encountered.
That is a monster. I will eat a monster.
You wanna make sure that you're thinking about toxins that the bug has inside of them, the bacteria that's on the bugs. You also wanna think about anti-nutrients that are actually meant to discourage predators from eating them by not allowing us to withdraw the protein from the foods. And it actually stops the protein absorption inside our bodies.
The Vietnamese centipede is the only species of centipede to have ever killed a human being.
Right in the oil. I'll season them again, just real quick, a little bit of salt and pepper.
How does he know to season it with salt and pepper? How does he know those flavors go together if he's never eaten it before? That's just like throwing salt on an already potentially salty food and be like,
The heat not only cooks the insect, it also breaks down the poisonous venom.
There you go. Take a peek and see what we've done today for you, Dave. Oh my God!
It's still got very much the look of the beast.
The look of the beast.
But there's so much muscle tissue.
I feel like I was about to throw up.
I understand why you say that. This concept isn't that out there for me because by eating more insects, we can place less strain on our land, have highly nutritious and protein-rich foods brought to our diet, especially in areas where we don't have farming abilities. I've actually tasted grasshopper before. Not too shabby.
We're the strongest
Family in the world.
Nick, Callie, Dylan, and Jessica Best
You could do it.
train their bodies up to 240 hours each week.
That's a lot of hours of training.
While some pediatricians warn against weight training for kids, 11-year-old Dylan routinely deadlifts 130 pounds.
I do like working out. It's like my coffee in the morning. If I don't do it, I don't feel right.
I love that this kid is so mature. Initially looking at this, 11 years old, is probably on the earlier side of starting to lift heavy weights. The idea is that you risk injury when you have non-fully formed muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, and start lifting heavy weights. It can be done safely, you just need to be very careful and monitored by a professional. Kids like below the age of 7 shouldn't be doing weightlifting at all. Starting at age 7, you could start incorporating strength training, that's good, but just not with heavy weights.
Oh my gosh, JJ.
Experts recommend children her age train with 1-pound weights.
Whoa!
But she can lift 100 pounds.
That's probably not ideal. That being said, I doubt that this was gonna do any real damage to her growth plates. That was kind of a myth that we had published by the American Academy of Pediatrics in 1983 where we thought that could happen. It was a potential risk. And then as time went on, we saw that happen less and less, especially with proper training.
Dylan and Jessica consume nearly twice the recommended calories for their age.
While we do give recommendations on caloric intake, that is a wide-ranging recommendation, needs to be individualized. So for children that are highly active like them, and we see how their weight and their BMI is trending, we can make different changes to their diets and to their recommendations. So the fact that they're eating a lot more than an average child isn't that wild to me because they're burning a lot of calories by doing all these workouts several times a day.
Hi, I'm Kelly Athena, and I'm obsessed with rescuing food from dumpsters.
I'm with it. We waste so much food in this country while other countries starve. I don't think this is a terrible idea. I just hope they're doing it safely.
The average American household spends over $500 a month on groceries.
And we oftentimes spend money on groceries that look the prettiest and waste the food that may not look pretty but is just as nutritious, just as tasty.
Everything I have in my fridge, I got from the dumpster. Apples, cucumbers, pickles, condiments, grapes, cantaloupe. Here's some soy milk I had, and it even expired more than a month ago.
Sometimes it's a full-on expiration date, but you really need to understand what that date is for, because that date could be like for ideal freshness or for ideal taste. It still might be calorically, nutritionally valuable.
I'm not afraid to eat right out of the dumpster if it's good stuff. There's this peach. If I peel it, that'll be pretty safe to eat. If I eat out at a restaurant, I don't know who's preparing that food back there.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that logic. You don't know who's preparing the food, at least it's cooked. Here, you're getting food that's been living in a dumpster. What if a raccoon pooped on it?
B is spicing up the 4-month-old dumpster pizza with cheese 2 weeks past its expiration date. Overripe tomatoes Kelly found a week ago.
Maybe a little diced fennel.
Fennel found at the bottom of a trash bin just this morning.
Well, it's a fresh dumpster fennel.
And frozen chicken.
Chicken, if it was even not frozen for a short period of time, bacteria can start proliferating on it, especially if it wasn't stored or prepared properly. Oh man, I've had a personal close friend of mine who eats thoroughly cooked foods, eat out at a restaurant, get an infection from one of those foods and then develop an abscess, which is a pocket of infection inside his brain, and he still has neurologic effects as a result of that. So this isn't like totally benign.
I'm addicted to coffee enemas.
For the past 2 years, Trina hasn't been able to function without her daily coffee enemas. A procedure where liquid is injected into the colon to clean out the lower intestine. Her addiction is so intense, she does up to 4 every day.
Okay, let's just do it right off the bat. Coffee enemas have not been proven to help with any medical condition. In like the 60s, 70s, we used to say maybe for constipation, but that's been dropped from medical literature. We have so many better ways of handling constipation that this is largely unnecessary. They're saying coffee enemas are used to clean your colons. No, they're not. It's a self-cleansing part of the body.
My initial reaction was, my God, that's disgusting.
Pretty judgmental response.
I tried it, and now I'm addicted to coffee enemas.
2 years ago, Trina turned to this unconventional ritual after a series of health issues.
I had a lot of stomach problems, digestive problems, problems with my kidney, my liver. I started to do research, and it led me into the coffee enemas. And immediately, I really started to feel the benefits.
It's understandable someone that is having symptoms, who's struggling, looking to find answers online, finds a treatment that is within their grasp, something that they can do on their own and tries it. That doesn't mean it's the right treatment or it's something that most people should try. My concern is that there's something else going on in these people's bodies that can be missed and potentially get worse over time because they're not seeing a doctor. Problems with kidneys needs to be investigated because if kidneys start failing, that's a threat to your own life.
My name is Julius. I'm 62 years old, and I'm addicted to balloons.
I love balloons.
They're beautiful, they're soft, smooth, delicate. I have a connection with them.
Is this like gonna be similar to what we've seen in the previous episodes of like objectophilia or even animism, where you believe that certain physical inanimate objects have a soul or a spirit, or maybe you become even sexually attracted to them? I'm curious.
Now Julius has filled his home with over 50,000 balloons
50,
and
that's
can't
a lot
sleep
of balloons.
unless he's surrounded by them.
My favorite is the spherical ones.
Honestly, I don't see what's wrong with this yet. He likes decorating his house with balloons. Some people like painting their walls. I don't know, they put wallpaper on. Some people put paper on their walls. To each their own.
But Julius's obsession with balloons goes beyond shapes and colors.
My love for balloons, it's also a sexual love.
Oh.
When I see a beautiful balloon, my heart starts to flutter and I get aroused. I'll take a 12-inch and I'll inflate it to 11-inch. That way it can take a lot of abuse.
There's a potential connection between objectophilia, animism, and autism that one study tried to explore, and I'm interested in exploring that subject to see how connected those two conditions are.
My wife thinks it's strange, but she accepts it.
Again, like, you have a job, you have a partner, you live a good life, you take care of your health, and you're sexually attracted to balloons. Not really a disorder. Disorders are based on ability to perform life functions, get satisfaction in life, reach goals in life. Let him sit in his room and blow up balloons and squeeze them. Like, why is he even a thing on this show? It's kind of weird. More power to you, sir.
I'm addicted to butt injections.
I'm curious if this is butt injections through like a BBL where they do liposuction and then re-inject the fat.
Carmelo's had 54 butt injections, yet she's never bared her behind to a plastic surgeon. She receives her shots on the black market, getting pumped with an unregulated substance that's been known to include metal lubricant and cement.
Yeah, I mean, that's really dangerous. There's so much that can go wrong here. This isn't a traditional BBL. Even BBLs are dangerous. Like 1 in 3,000 individuals who has a BBL has a complication of a fatty embolism. The fat actually gets lodged into their blood vessels and can be lethal if it travels all the way up to the lungs. I've actually had patients that have had huge complications as a result of bad injections like this. They were done abroad in other countries, but then they ended up getting a terrible cellulitis, abscess formation in the buttock area where like major surgery had to take place to take out the necrotic tissue, dead tissue, so they ended up losing a part of their buttock.
What brings you in today?
Dr. Yoon, welcome back to the channel.
Do you have any idea what she injected you with? Did she tell you?
She said liquid silicone.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if that's really what it was.
Did she do anything afterwards? I mean, did she stitch up the incisions?
She put super glue.
There are times we use glue in medical settings in the ER, but not for deep wounds, not for big wounds, not for wounds that could potentially become severely infected. So like there's a time and place for all medical tools, and that's not the place for super glue.
You can see here, this is your thigh, the fat in your thigh, which is smooth and normal, but up here it looks kind of spongy, this texture, and that's definitely not normal. So even though you're healthy, it just takes one bad injection to literally kill you.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad she was able to decide not to do that again.
My name is Margaret, and I'm 53 years old. I live in Morningview, Kentucky, and I'm addicted to stinging myself with bees.
Ooh. Kind of mean to the bee, because doesn't the bee die after it stings you?
Margaret has been addicted to bee stings for the past 10 years.
It could be an endorphin rush, because when you do experience pain, when your body tries to relieve that pain, it sends endorphins to try and decrease the pain.
Her addiction started innocently as a way to relieve her arthritis.
You know, there is some preliminary evidence, weak evidence I'd call it, of bee venom helping individuals with rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. However, when you compare it to the treatments that we have now, you can get better outcomes with less side effects and, most importantly, less pain.
The first time that I stung myself, it didn't hurt as bad as I thought it would. And it just got easier every time.
And it's great that she doesn't have a bee allergy. I mean, some individuals, they get stung, their whole arm blows up, their mouth can even blow up, they can go into anaphylaxis. People carry EpiPens for bees. And you know, even though allergies are more likely to happen early in life, they can develop later in life as well.
But every time Margaret stings herself, the honeybee dies.
Yeah.
Something Margaret is all too aware of.
Every bee is precious. I get sad when I watch them die. I prefer to get an older bee. The younger bees, they've got their lives ahead of them, and it helps me feel less guilt about killing the bees.
It's a sad situation to see, because I would love for her to find pain relief in a way where it's not damaging to the bees, to her mental health, and potentially can give her longer lasting relief, depending on what the cause of her arthritis is.
My name is Mark, I'm 20 years old, and I'm in a relationship with 15 inflatable animals. My mother really wasn't there for me when I was a child. First time I hugged my inflatable whale, I actually started feeling all that love and compassion.
Could be oxytocin, which is one of the hormones that your body releases when you're cuddling. This is actually why animal therapy, I mean, it's a little bit different, obviously, but why animal therapy works quite well, especially in those newly diagnosed with autism, because animals are not judgmental. So you can show an animal affection and pet them and enjoy their company without them judging you. And there's less risk there for humans to be hurt, so they enjoy their time with animals. That's why equine therapy does quite well, emotional support dogs, etc.
Now he's so dependent on his inflatables, he can't be separated from them for more than a day.
This is again entering the realm of what we categorize as disorder, because he can't be without them. So as a result, it can impact his ability to live a fulfilling life, reaching his major milestones, going to work, having relationships, etc.
If I could marry Lila, I would, because I am that much in love with her.
But Mark and Lila haven't taken their relationship to the next level yet.
Me and Lila Dragon don't have sex together. We keep our relationship clean.
You know, we've talked about objectophilia, which is when someone falls in love with an inanimate object or has sexual desire for an inanimate object. And there's been theories as to why this occurs. They're saying there's some pattern with those who've been diagnosed with autism, those who have these sensory situations where in feeling certain things, there's a crossover neurologically that when they see this inflatable dragon, that they also engage their sexual desires. Not because they've trained that way, but because the body's made that way.
The therapist helped me realize that my inflatables are getting me used to more socializing with them rather than real people. From now on, I'm gonna start spending a little less time each day with my inflatables. I'll still have my inflatables in my life, but they're not gonna be the primary part of my life.
If something's going on mentally where you are finding a lot of value in these inflatables, just taking them away abruptly can cause more harm and trauma. Because as you can tell, this person has an adverse childhood event. I'm actually curious about his job situation, whose house that is, how does he provide for himself? Because those are the questions that you really need to learn about this person more so than what the diagnosis is or what his romantic life is with these animals. That's what's gonna tell me who he is as a human and what impact these inflatables are having on his life.
I'm Amy. I'm Becky. And we're 45 years old. And we're addicted to being identical.
What? Addicted to being identical. You either are twins or you're not twins.
For some reason, Amy had gained a teeny bit more weight than me. Yeah. And people would go like, oh, you're the big twin, you're the smaller twin. And literally from then on out, we eat the same exact bites of food and drink the same sips of drink.
You know, I know some sisters and brothers that are like this, but not to this degree. So I feel like they are closer than what is expected of normal, but that's just cultural expectations. See, this is where it can cause a disruption in someone's life to the point where it can become a disorder. If you can't be apart from each other for more than 30 minutes, you have to sleep in the same bedroom. That makes accommodations difficult.
My main concern is that one would actually die before the other, and the other one would be lost completely without.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would say that's probably a little bit of an irrational worry. Later in life, absolutely, you need to start planning for that. But right now, as young women, to decide whether or not they need to learn how to be without each other shouldn't be based on the fact that one of them may die. That's a fairly lower risk thing to worry about.
I've never heard of them being in a long-term relationship, and that concerns me a lot.
That concerns you, but what if they don't want to be in a long-term relationship? That could be totally appropriate.
So I set Becky up on a blind date.
Hi, Becky. Becky.
Hi.
And the show obviously tells them both.
Twins. Twins.
Beautiful.
My sister and I told Jillian I would go on this blind date.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I technically didn't lie.
We just left a little part out.
We just left a little part out.
Which was me.
It's not exactly how I envisioned it. So
they have the same watch. I love it.
Married or?
Wow.
Tell me.
We're kind of married to each other.
Yeah, talk about setting up a guy for failure without giving him a heads up. The date didn't fail because there's something different about them. The date failed because the guy didn't get a heads up that they're very unique. It's like setting up someone who doesn't want to be married on a date, and then the person goes and says, do you want to get married? And they say no, and then the date ends horribly. Could have seen that one. Oh! That's a lot of cockroaches. You know what's funny? I grew up in Brooklyn, and okay, maybe it wasn't that bad, but there were cockroaches in certain areas all over the place.
Hi, my name is Shelby Counterman. I am 9 years old, and I collect cockroaches.
Oh wow, she kisses them.
When I started collecting roaches, I only had 5.
You know what I just found out the other day? There are roaches, or some kind of insects that look like roaches, that breathe through their body that make hissing sounds, and it literally kept me up all night. Can you imagine this thing walking next to you and it's going,
Now I have thousands.
wow. I mean, roaches don't like bite. They may scratch you accidentally or something, but they don't bite. But they do spread diseases, like bacteria especially, salmonella, strep, staph. They can even cause cholera, dysentery. So you gotta be careful with these roaches.
I could do without them.
The father says I could do without them.
These are my Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
I knew some of them hiss.
Sometimes they're too noisy, I will hiss at them.
They're not actually hissing, I think they're breathing.
They're not harmful at all, except they may be a little stinky once in a while.
Yeah, also you're keeping like 10,000 of them in like a Tupperware container meant for Legos. I don't know if that's ideal storage for roaches. Like, why do you need 1,000? Can you have one roach? One friend roach?
My name is Samantha. I'm 20 years old. I consider myself pretty responsible, independent, like to have fun, and I'm addicted to tanning.
Oh, tanning is so bad. I mean, tanning is incredibly problematic, especially as a young person. If you're below the age of 20 and you tan even once, your risk of melanoma goes up like 50%.
My typical tanning day is going to 3 different tanning places, 20 minutes in the bed for an equivalent of an hour a day.
I think you're almost like guaranteeing yourself cancer at that point. Not only are you increasing drastically your chances of developing cancer, you're destroying your appearance because skin becomes dried out, becomes poorer quality, looseness occurs.
Tanning is my everything because it makes me really happy. Anytime I'm sad or upset, going tanning just makes me like perk right up.
There is some evidence showing that going tanning a lot and then stopping can cause like withdrawal symptoms. So we try and help that by sending the patients or working with them to go to therapy or even take medications.
Think about tanning when I wake up, I think about tanning in the shower. I don't think there's actually ever a point where I don't think about tanning.
That's worth exploring. Is she thinking about how she feels in the tanning booth? Is it afterwards? Is it the appearance? Is it something she doesn't like about herself? Like, all these are questions that one might ask in a visit to try and figure out where the source of thinking about tanning comes from.
I'm not really worried about the premature aging because that's why they have Botox, plastic surgery, facelifts.
The problem is that doesn't enhance or solve the problem of what tanning creates. Like, if the materials themselves, aka your skin, and the foundational blocks that make up your skin are damaged permanently, all those things that you just discussed do not target or solve that issue. This is a perfect example of an individual that would benefit from meeting someone who was also addicted to tanning and seeing them 10, 20 years later, just to get a sense of what can happen. Because I think that's a good reality wake-up call for many.
You're actually very fortunate. I don't see any signs of skin cancer, which is great, but the risk of melanoma is still huge in someone like you.
I'm pretty excited that the doctor didn't find any skin cancer, so now I can go home and tell people I told you so.
That's not how it works. When we say it raises your risk of skin cancer, it's not right now, it's across your whole life. A lot of young people have that mindset of, oh, I don't even want to live till I'm 40 or 70. I'd rather get all my fun in now. And you only say that up until you're 30 or 40 or 50, and then you realize how much more you want to keep living life and enjoying the different stages of your life.
I am Sydney, I am 29 years old, and I am making my neck long.
What this thing does is not make your neck long. It can make the appearance of your neck long by pushing down the clavicles, which are your collarbones here, and literally changing the angle of your top ribs. So it looks like your neck is longer, but it's actually not becoming longer.
Because of the necklace, I had to change everything in my life. Even the way I eat. I can feel my throat pressing against the back of the necklace when I swallow.
If you're limiting your range of motion, you're actually creating restrictions in blood flow, weaknesses in the stabilizing muscles of the neck, and as a result are setting yourself up for future tension headaches, compression headaches, maybe even circulation problems, depending on how tight the neck rings actually are.
The idea of stopping has not crossed my mind because it's been in my mind my whole life.
Look where she's at and look where I'm at. I would love to get my neck as long as hers.
Remember, the way that the ribs move follow a very specific pattern to allow maximal expansion of your lungs. And when you're limiting rib mobility and changing the rib mobility, you're actually decreasing your ability to take a full breath, and as a result, starting to impact your cardiopulmonary performance.
I don't feel very good after removing the necklace. Wow, it is really bruised. It's a little upsetting to see the bruising.
When you have constant pressure on your skin, you could actually cause pressure necrosis. This is basically what happens in a hospital when someone stays for a long period of time and is bedbound, can't walk, can't rotate in the bed. They could actually develop pressure ulcers. They could get so deep to the point where the skin gets broken down all the way to the bone, past even the adipose or fat tissue.
This is my destiny, and this is what I've chosen for myself.
People take risks all the time doing things that they find valuable and pleasurable, and if this culturally means something to her, who are we to judge?
I'm Justin Jedlicka, I'm 32 years old, and I'm a living doll.
A living doll? Is that a profession? Is that a hobby?
I've had 125 procedures.
It's a lot of procedures.
And it's been $158,000 to make me really resemble a doll.
See, I wonder if at any point did his doctors have a discussion as to why he wants this. Is it healthy to keep going for surgical procedures? Are there other options like getting in shape where your muscles can look big without having to get implants? And I'm only saying that because that's a healthier alternative, not necessarily he has to do that.
I started having a couple other nose revisions. They all get a little fuzzy after a while. But at the end, I've had 5 nose jobs now.
Because I'm not a plastic surgeon, I don't know what the qualifications are of a person that should not get plastic surgery. But I think if you're getting multiple facial revisions and you're doing it to replicate an imaginary being, I think that's worth an evaluation with a mental health specialist, at the very least.
We're at a critical stage here. Yeah. You're gonna die pretty soon.
Today, we're watching Family by the Ton. I'm not gonna lie, not a huge fan of the title, but let's see what the show has to offer and learn something along in the process. Let's get started.
I would just eat until I'm dead, probably. A normal day for me is wake up around 12, figure out something I'm gonna eat immediately. TV, video games, bed.
So it's interesting, you see him drying himself off with the towel in that specific way. When you have excessive body weight and you have excess skin, excess fat tissue, you have to be really thorough about drying yourself because it's really easy for a candida infection to begin. And as a result, you can get really bad redness, irritation of the skin. It can then become a full-on cellulitis where bacterial infection sets in. So it's really important to dry skin folds in order to decrease the likelihood of this happening.
I never would have thought at 34 I'd be living with my father and I'd have no job, have no real money, and just be playing video games all day and eating.
When you're trying to address someone's situation where they're morbidly obese, you have to look at the patient as a whole. You have to look at what are the reasons that contributed to this occurring. What can you do in order to prevent it from recurring? Look at triggers, look at mental health factors, look at sleep schedules, daily activities. Like in general, I'm not against gaming. I love gaming. I consider myself a gamer. But there are times when we can take something that can be potentially beneficial and make it into something that it's not. And this can happen with anything. I mean, it's really the dose decides the poison. So having an unhealthy relationship with food, with gaming, all of this can contribute to this ultimate unhealthy lifestyle, which will ultimately decrease lifespan and decrease quality of life. And that quality of life is really what I like to focus on. Because yes, we want to extend lifespan, we want patients to live a long life, but at the same time, I want them to live that life comfortably. I don't want them to be in pain. I don't want them to be in mental anguish because they don't feel like they're connecting with the outside world. And that's what a good doctor, nutritionist, or like I said, any other health professional looks at when addressing these types of problems.
Hey, so I got your food.
Okay.
He'll tell me what to get him, and I come right back a lot of times in case that's too much food. But I'll get it for him and bring it to the house and put it right in front of him.
I don't want to call him an enabler, but I mean, sometimes that's really the way it seems that it is. I'm not buying the groceries. I'm not buying the frozen pizzas. I'm not buying the chicken wings. There's someone facilitating the food coming in, and it's not me.
I mean, there's partial truth in that. I don't think that's a valid excuse for someone to make. If my patient told me, hey, look, it's not about me, I'm not the one doing the shopping. At the end of the day, there's a level of personal responsibility involved in all this, but to solely place the blame at the foot of others is not a healthy pattern. Not because it's right or wrong, but because it takes away control from you. And when you take away control from you, you actually create more of a problem where you feel like you're helpless, you have to do it, and there's nothing you can do to change it. When that is not in fact reality, there are things you can do to change it. There are conversations to be had with your quote unquote enablers, because the foods that are being consumed are A, unhealthy foods, B, there's salt being added to already very salty foods, the portion sizes are tremendous, and I saw the father mention tea. That tea has so much excess calories from the added refined sugars. Like, that's even worse than eating a huge amount of food, because at least when you eat the food, you can feel satiated and there's some fiber and other nutrients in there. But when you're just drinking sugar water, which is essentially what a lot of these sweet teas are, in mega amounts, you're just adding weight.
So I bathe outside of this trough currently because I cannot physically bathe in a sit-down bathtub or stand-up shower area. Because I'm a bigger guy with like folds and flaps, I have to move around like almost like a pig in a way, and wallow and roll over to get like the back of my leg. I have to lift up literal like pieces of skin. It's just a super difficult process.
There's a lot of adjustments that are needed to be made in someone's home when they are of this excessive weight. There's also adjustments that need to be made in the hospital. I've had patients who are morbidly obese who unfortunately did not fit in our CAT scan machines and our MRI machines. And in those scenarios, A, you try and look at the facilities around you if there's an option to transfer the patient that someone does have a larger piece of equipment. And then there's sometimes been situations where we literally have to contact our local zoo who have really large machinery for some of their larger animals, and we use those. It's not a pleasant conversation to have with patients, but it goes to show how there's a lot that needs to be done in order to make sure that we're keeping folks like this healthy.
This is an icebreaker. We do have to take your weight first.
This is coming. When I weigh myself in my house, I do it butt naked, just use the bathroom, number one, number two. And I've like tried to throw up the last meal I ate so I can lose any pounds. Now I'm there wearing clothes, I'm kicking off my flip-flops, anything I can get off of my body to lower the number, because I know it's gonna be shockingly big.
It's 711.8.
Now, I know some bariatric offices that try and save this step for later in the visit. Reason being is, whether this patient is approximately 500, 600, 700 pounds, we know that there's gonna be a benefit to doing the procedure. So we can already lead with that assumption. A lot of times it's traumatic to step on this scale and look at the number, so we try and perhaps save it for not the first thing you do when you walk into the office, because that alone can cause people to not want to come in to see the doctor in the first place.
We're at a critical stage here.
Yeah.
You're gonna die pretty soon, unless something happens here.
Now, I know that's jarring to hear. I understand why. I agree with this approach. I think this is the most successful approach because it's honest. Whether you have a patient who's morbidly obese and is over 700 pounds, or you're recommending a do not resuscitate order for a family member. Those are difficult conversations. The truest, most honest, non-judgmental way you could deliver that news is gonna be the most successful way you could deliver that news.
With you, the route we're gonna go down towards is a sleeve gastrectomy.
Okay.
All right? So, this is your stomach.
Gotcha.
All right? What we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and we're gonna remove this outer portion of your stomach right here. There will be a metabolic switch that gets flipped in your body when you have this surgery. Your body will want to lose weight.
Yeah. When Dr. Proctor was going over to surgery, it was pretty scary, only because I fear surgery in general.
Understandable that he's apprehensive. Surgery comes with legitimate risks, even if it's bariatric surgery. That being said, being 700 plus pounds carries way more risks than the surgery. And that's how we decide whether or not a procedure, a medication, a treatment is good for a patient.
Why don't you tell me, what does a normal day of eating look like for you prior to when you saw Dr. Proctor?
So like, we're waking up at like 12.
Okay.
And then probably ordering food from the hot dog house.
What do you usually order?
On like a normal day, it might be like 20 wings or like 10 tenders, and then it would be like a small order of tater tots and a large sweet tea.
This size cup?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're doing 32 ounces of sweet tea.
My lunches were either a taco salad or like tacos.
Okay.
But it was, you know, not a lot of sour cream.
And then were you having dinner?
It could be anything from like a big thing of fried chicken, a pizza we'd have like not occasionally, but sometimes.
So Dr. Proctor wants you to lose 60 pounds by the time he sees you next.
The reason why all of these guidelines are in place about having patients lose a certain amount of weight before the surgery, having them see a psychologist, running blood tests, is you want to set the patient up for success. If we just willy-nilly did bariatric surgeries on everybody who is obese, it would be problematic, because what happens is when you do the surgery, there's very specific protocol you have to follow. If you overeat with a smaller stomach, you can actually cause surgical issues. You can rupture your stomach, you can cause vomiting, it can cause mental havoc, it can lead you to going into a dark depression. We really try and select our patients that we think are gonna have the best outcome from the bariatric surgery instead of just recommending it for all.
So I've hired a personal trainer for the first time in my life. This is the first time I've been to the gym in a long time, and I am a little bit nervous. Hey, what's up, man?
Casey, right?
Yeah. Dex?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
When I watch programs like this on TLC, my one issue that I have is a lot of this is not reality for most Americans. I don't want someone who is potentially wanting to lose weight to look at this and think that unless I have this, I can't lose weight. It's not true. You don't need the diesel personal trainer in order to lose the weight. Any kind of physical activity when you're going from zero will help. Also, being kind to yourself and not pushing yourself too hard in the beginning is also really important. With someone who is 700 plus pounds, you really want to make sure that you're focusing on injury prevention. It's very easy to overload joints, to pull and hurt muscles, and as a result, you can set someone back. So it's really about starting slow.
We're gonna do arm rotations, 15 each way.
All right, gotcha.
Good, now we go back the opposite way.
All right.
I had Casey move his own body weight so he can establish a correlation between what he's accomplished already and what he can expect himself to do in the future.
See, like someone might look at that and say, that's not exercise. Yes, it is. His heart rate's going up, his breathing rate's going up. This all automatically kicks up the metabolism, helps him prepare to meet the challenge. And he's been sedentary. You can't push too hard, too fast. You can put too much strain on the heart and even cause a heart attack. There's actually a type of heart attack called a type 2 myocardial infarction that happens as a result of not a pure blockage, but simply because there was so much strain on the heart that there wasn't enough circulation going that actual damage has occurred.
It's been 3 months since my surgery and I feel good. Little things are changing in me that I didn't really expect to change so quickly. As I accomplish more, My self-esteem is rising, so I feel like I can do more. So it's just a good feeling. I started this journey at 711 pounds, and today I'm happy to say that I'm 525.
I think it's great when you start seeing your goals pan out, and that's how motivation happens. It's seeing your hard work be paid off, and it might not happen off the first, second, or third time, but as you continue, you keep seeing that you're making improvements, whether it's after a week, after a month, or after a year. And even for myself, I had a buddy that was in the ICU recently and had a lot of neurological deficits, and as he was slowly recovering, he would call me each day, upset the fact that he wasn't making progress, and I had to remind him, write down what your deficits are today. Do it next week, do it the following week, and then each time you're upset, look back and see how much you've improved. When you look in every hour by hour, day by day, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of how much you've accomplished, but when you really spread it out and think in scale, which we as humans are not good at doing, you get to see the accomplishment. You get to feel motivated. You get to see that you're making moves in the right direction, even if it's 3 steps forward, 1 step back.
Well, I'm trying to get my license renewed.
This is him now?
Because on the 20th of this month. Because on my other license, I'm huge. I'm a whale. So there we go. That's me. I don't know if you can see that real well. I don't know, but that's me. It's really weird too, because like 2020 Corona is like the worst year of some people's lives. Like it's really been awful for people, but like it's gonna go down in the record books as like one of the best years of my life probably. Life for me is blossoming.
What he's experiencing right now is almost like a form of post-traumatic growth. It's looking back at your accomplishments, there's nostalgia there, and the fact that he's in fact reached his goal. He's in fact improved his quality of life. It goes to show that everything that we discussed in the beginning of this episode, where it comes to extending life and improving quality of life, he's a walking testimonial for.
1, 2, 3.
Repositioning is of utmost importance, especially when you're overweight to this degree, because you start putting pressure on certain areas of your skin, your muscles, your bones. You could develop pressure ulcers. Those can get infected, becomes very, very complicated to treat.
I have no life. My legs can't even hold my weight anymore.
That's why it's so important when we talk about someone being obese or being overweight, we talk about their quality of life being equally as important as their state of health and their risks that they face.
My weight has condemned me to this bed. I can't do anything. I can't even bathe myself.
It's really important that you clean within the skin folds as well, because bacteria can get trapped there. It's a dark, moist environment most of the time, and as a result, fungi thrive in that type of environment. So not only do you have to wash it well, but you have to dry it well as well.
I have arthritis, gout, lymphedema, diabetes.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is all a result of metabolic syndrome, which can develop from being overweight to this degree. You know, a lot of people, when I even talked about bariatric surgery on some of my past videos, were quite critical of me for saying that bariatric surgery can be an option for somebody. But for somebody like this, who is struggling to move around because of arthritis, because of legitimate medical conditions. She's unable to take care of herself on her own. So yes, bariatric surgery can be a life changer, a lifesaver in many cases. While I don't think it's appropriate in all cases, far from all cases, I think you need to be open-minded that in medicine, the selection for the treatment depends on the individual patient in front of you. And this patient, for now at least, it makes sense.
As a kid, I was never overweight. It wasn't until my early 20s that my weight started to be a problem. I tried to break up with my boyfriend at the time. He lost it, and he took me hostage. He held me at gunpoint, and I thought I was gonna die.
A lot of folks rush to judge people. Many feel like fat shaming is appropriate because they view someone who is obese as lazy. People have true problems, medically related and psychologically related. This person dealt with a traumatic situation, and perhaps that is the cause of the start of this condition. So to judge someone unfairly just by simply writing them off as lazy is unfair, and that's why we're against fat shaming on this channel.
I was too scared to leave the house. I lived in constant fear, and I just ate. I'm a junk food junkie.
A lot of times when you eat those types of foods, they can increase temporarily some neurotransmitters in your brain that help you feel good. So it almost becomes a type of self-medication when you start binging foods like that, especially the junk foods.
She don't lose the weight. I'm afraid this she'll pass.
It's a very reasonable concern to have when someone is of that size, because you're putting tremendous strain on every organ in your body. And it's an unnatural strain as well.
We're expecting arrival of Marla McCants. From what I understand, she may be close to 800 pounds. If she's that big, she should have used bariatric ambulance with medical care to go with her. She should not have come to use on her own. She should have waited for a safer option.
Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, that safer option may be unaffordable to most people. That's why, as a doctor, you can't just make recommendations. You have to make recommendations with the patient in mind. Do they want to do this? Can they afford to do this? Is this service even available to them?
I can already see that she is in one of the worst conditions health-wise I ever seen.
For a prolonged trip like that with lack of mobility, her chance of developing a blood clot goes through the roof. And why is that dangerous? Because a blood clot is more likely to happen in the lower extremities. Then if that clot travels in the circulation back to the heart and then to the lungs and gets stuck there, you develop a pulmonary embolism, which cuts off blood supply to the lung, and essentially that part of the lung starts dying. You could see how that could quickly become fatal.
I can't move my leg.
Your leg hurt? Look, I got a little bit swelling, huh?
Well, that swelling could be as a result of the DVT, that clot we just talked about, or it could be her lymphedema acting up.
We're gonna run some tests to find out what may be going on with you.
The test that they're usually running in these situations would be a Doppler ultrasound of the lower extremities, which is an ultrasound to check for blood flow in the lower extremities to see if everything's opened, if all the blood vessels are open, and then also a D-dimer test. And sometimes if they suspect that the clot has already traveled to the lungs, we can do a special type of CAT scan. Okay, so that could potentially mean that, one, obviously the pulmonary embolism we just talked about, but also a lot of stress on her heart. Something could have happened there, congestive heart failure-wise. But also patients that are of her size do develop sleep apnea where they stop breathing for periods of time, but usually it's not to the point where their heart stops as well.
She pushed her body to the limit for years. And the car ride down was just too much for her to handle. We need to get her to surgery immediately to put a filter in her.
So what he's talking about here is an IVC filter, which is an inferior vena cava filter, which is meant to be put into the vein in order to catch and act like a net for clots that could potentially leave the lower body and come up to the lungs, so it prevents them from reaching the lungs. Now, usually we do this only as a secondary resort, because in patients who have blood clots, we usually put them on blood thinning agents, unless there is a true contraindication for starting the blood thinners, or that they scan her legs and they see so many clots there that they don't even think that they can dissolve them. In this case, I'm not sure why they decided to go with the IVC filter instead of blood thinning agents, but they could be doing both at the same time. That's also been done in the past as well.
And I'm currently placing the filter in the vena cava. This is a delicate operation, so we have to do this very carefully, but it will help save Marla's life.
It's important to point out, because I don't think Dr. Now is making this very clear, this isn't the treatment to save her life. This is a treatment to prevent another clot from happening and dislodging again and going to the lungs. And also, it's not 100% effective. That's a very aggressive diet. I don't know if she needed that aggressive of a diet right off the bat. Even eating 2,000 calories a day would cause weight loss. I don't think you needed it to be so extreme.
Outside of having to adjust to a controlled diet, they've been trying to get me up to walk. I feel like they're pushing me too hard.
So one of the orders that we almost always put in for patients that are hospitalized for extended periods of time is ambulate with assistance, ambulate at least from out of bed to chair, because that allows the patient to decrease the likelihood of developing clots. It helps facilitate the recovery, starts working the cardiovascular system, because a patient who's so deconditioned, meaning not used to moving around, needs to gradually work their way up in order to return to be able to have some level of independence.
When someone becomes immobile, they get used to others doing everything for them.
All right, are you ready?
That can be a tough dynamic to change.
Okay, you ready? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring this one first.
But we're going to do what we can to try. The rest will be up to Marlon.
Push. I'm falling. Please.
It's okay, we got you.
If Marlon won't get up, then we can't treat her.
Yeah, being able to move and carry your own body weight is very important in order to have success of any surgery. Because again, you need to have your heart strong enough to be able to do that. Part of my risk stratification for preoperative screening is finding out what a patient's activity levels are like. What are they able to do? For example, if a patient actively exercises, they're automatically a lower risk versus a patient who's sedentary, doesn't exercise, gets winded just by walking a block, that patient automatically becomes higher risk. When I say higher risk, I mean higher risk for their heart stopping. Like, that's the risk I'm talking about.
I'm going to go ahead and perform weight loss surgery because outside of this, she has no hope. Gastric bypass surgery will reduce size of stomach and also bypass part of intestine. The stomach is as big as a watermelon. With this operation, we're going to reduce size of stomach to a size of small orange.
This sounds and looks barbaric because it is, but it's an extreme measure to potentially save a person's life. This is why we don't recommend bariatric surgery from someone who's only somewhat overweight. Every treatment has risks. In fact, if a treatment doesn't have risks, it likely in the beginning never had any potential benefit anyway.
Marla is demonstrating very poor attitude and very poor response. This is a very dysfunctional behavior. She's stubborn like that. If she acts like a kid, you treat her like a kid.
It's a very controversial way to be a physician. I find that I've had success with other motivational techniques, making a healthier connection with your patient, using motivational interviewing techniques. Granted, it doesn't work all the time. Patient needs to know there's consequences for their actions. You could tell the doctor now is getting a little bit offended, getting a little irritated. Pulling yourself out of that situation is probably ideal because now, while you're using this old school, like hardened type of mentality, it doesn't work for all people and can actually have the patient turn against you.
I'm hoping that sending her home will be a wake-up call.
But I wonder why they need Dr. Now for this. Dr. Now is not a rehabilitation specialist. Maybe getting her in with a mental health specialist would have probably been the best thing here. And while Dr. Now could be a great bariatric surgeon, he's clearly not a mental health specialist. He's clearly not a rehab specialist. And while all of his advice medically makes sense, he's clearly not being effective in communicating that message and getting the patient to take care of her best interests. Getting another team member here would go a long way in helping her perhaps find her inner motivation to want to stand up.
Here we go. All right. Keep pushing your weight on.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good job, Marla.
Yeah. I didn't think I could get up.
You want to try it again?
Yeah, we can.
This is the time and tested true method, time tested true time tested method of motivation doesn't come first. It's doing the action and then the motivation follows. Like her saying, I want to do it again.
There you go.
Keep going.
Keep going, you're almost there.
Keep going, you're almost there.
All right.
There you go.
Wow. Wow, that's great.
Good job.
I'm so proud of myself. Makes me feel like I can do anything.
About 300 pounds less, huh? Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Breathing is probably easier for her because your lungs cannot fully expand against all of that excess skin, weight, and as a result, parts of your lungs actually die off through a process called atelectasis.
So when can I get skin surgery?
From what I can tell, you're not making much effort to get better.
That's your opinion. I don't think I have a very good understanding with you and you don't have one with me.
I think that's a very fair assessment. He's jumping to conclusions, it seems like all the time. As a doctor, you need to be doing this as a team, like a collaborative approach, not just with you and the patient, but you, the patient, the physical therapist. You have to be getting the reports. If the reports were coming in from the physical therapist, that patient's not interested in doing this, that's one thing. But my suspicion is he's making assumptions based on her weight or lack of progress. Now you need to be investigating this lack of progress, where it's coming from. You can't just make assumptions.
In 5,000 patients in past 40 years, I don't remember I've seen anybody 6 months after surgery that haven't been able to walk.
You're putting me in a group.
My opinion is based on my experience.
You can't put me with nobody else.
You've got a bad attitude.
And why
His
do I have a bad attitude?
Time out, doctor, now. Separate yourself. You can have this same exact conversation, same theme, same message that he's trying to get across without ever getting mad. You are literally doing the opposite of de-escalating the situation.
I feel you don't treat me fair or
Marla, I can't do any more for you.
Okay.
See your primary doctor. Ask him tomorrow to find another surgeon because we are dismissing you from our care.
The patient makes a statement.
I feel you don't treat me fair or
Marla.
You need to explore that as a physician. What do you mean by that? Patient will say, I want this skin surgery and you're not giving this to me. I can then say to the patient, I would love to give you the skin surgery, but I know that if we do it before you start walking, ultimately it's gonna harm you. My goal here is to treat you, not to treat your skin. It's to make you as healthy as a person as possible and not put you into negative situations or dangerous situations. Isn't that what you want for yourself as well? You see how we just all got on the same page? That might not work the first time. That might have to take multiple things, but that's why you gotta be patient. You gotta be patient with your patients.
I finally found a clinic here in Nashville to help me keep making progress with my weight loss. I hope I made it below 400 pounds.
364.
And she's standing.
Ms. McCants. Nice to see you. Well, you have made astounding progress, and if you can lose that next 100 pounds, then you can have all the extra skin taken off.
If you do the skin surgery also too early, you then still lose more weight, you'll need more surgery. It means more scars, more complications. You also have to be understanding that having excess skin makes it challenging to mobilize and move around. Be understanding and say, I understand that this is terrible, but we're gonna have to keep moving through this, so what ways can I help you? Maybe you can get them outfit recommendations, compression stockings, whatever it is to try and help your patient achieve their goals.
Once I get this skin off of me and nothing's holding me back anymore, I'm gonna travel and see the world.
Genuinely, her life has changed. Her opportunities have expanded greatly. And I'm not talking about her opportunities to travel the world, that's cool, but her ability to move to the kitchen, her ability to prepare food for herself, that if one of her kids gets sick, she could still care for her daily needs. Imagine that if one of her kids can't come, she would have to not be able to shower and potentially get infections, then get hospitalized. It's not a quality of life that is reasonable. So that's why bariatric surgery absolutely needs to exist, at least for now. We need to be open-minded to its risks and be aware of its risks and not overuse it as a treatment.
We can't wait to show you how she looks now. Please welcome Miss Marla McCants.
Wow.
You're not alone. You can overcome your struggles and fears. You can overcome, you can do it. I did it.
Yes.
You can do it.
Post-traumatic growth right there. Someone went through a terrible situation, both initially with her partner, but now also a traumatic situation with her weight, and now she's a role model for people. She's using that trauma to grow from, to help others grow. Yay, I'm Team Marla. Just watching her wake up in the morning, you could tell she's having a difficult time with mobility. And part of when we talk about helping patients lose weight is thinking about their quality of life. So yes, we want to decrease risks of cardiovascular disease, development of metabolic disorders like diabetes, but we also want to make them comfortable. We want to make them be able to enjoy their day-to-day lives. And as they get older, we want to make sure that they're able to keep their independence.
When I wake up in the morning, I start hurting because the pain is intense.
Remember, it's exponential. The amount of weight you're carrying in your abdomen is going to be exponentially higher on your hips, on your knees, on your ankles. The number one thing proven to help reduce osteoarthritic pain and other symptoms related to it is weight loss.
It hurts. And it's hard to reach around my body.
It is hard, but it is very important because when you have excess adipose tissue, skin tissue, that's a place where bacteria can live, fungi can live, and therefore you can actually develop skin conditions that are not only dangerous, but also very uncomfortable and painful.
Once I get out the shower, my daughter comes in and she'll clean out the back of my legs because my arms are too short to reach.
Mom, she tries to do everything. She tries not to be lazy. She tries to do a lot. But she can't.
It's important to not just clean the area, but also dry the area thoroughly because a moist environment, again, harbors bacteria and fungi.
Size was something that was seen as, you know, kind of a birthright in our family. We loved to eat. It was a kind of a running joke that if you were big, you were well.
Culturally, eating is so important to people that discussing one's diet needs to be done in a very thoughtful and careful way. You never know what food means to somebody, what their daily meals with their family means to somebody. I've seen this happen in my clinic with those who are from the Latin American community and how important it is for them to have regular meals with their family that consist of rice, tortilla. Some of these foods, when eating in excess, can actually be harmful for the patient, especially when they have metabolic conditions like diabetes.
I was gaining weight from a young age. And by the time I was in middle school, I was already 250 pounds. Then I started having seizures. Every time I had a seizure, it was while I was watching TV or a movie.
I wonder if that has something to do with an epilepsy condition that is triggered by flashing lights, or perhaps sleep deprivation. In fact, when we have children that have had a seizure, they come into our inpatient service in the hospital where we actually put an EEG cap on where we monitor their brain waves, and we try to induce the seizure, either through sleep deprivation, flashing lights. And when we do that, we are able to have the seizure occur in a safe, controlled medical setting, but then we're able to see what parts of the brain it's coming from, and we could actually then medicate the individual, get them in a place where they're seizure-free, and hopefully are gonna be safe to go back home.
At 28, there was a situation that occurred that I needed to take custody of 3 of my cousin's kids.
Oh, wow. That's awesome that she did that for her family.
I didn't want to give up on having children of my own. So I dated and got pregnant with my 2 youngest children. I was too big to weigh on the office scale, so I had to go to the freight scale. At that time, I was about 480, and I spent all my time focused on taking care of everybody else instead of myself.
And I know some people say, why were they even weighing her? That doesn't seem like it was sensitive. It's actually really important during pregnancy to monitor one's weight, to make sure that there's no fluid accumulation, that the baby is impacting the body in a certain way. Those who carry excess body weight to this degree not only have trouble with scales, they have trouble in our offices with stools. They have trouble fitting in MRI and CAT scan machines. So it's not an easy life by any means.
My weight limits me so much. So I want to lose the weight. But when the cravings come, all I want to do is eat.
I'm sure this was filmed before the introduction of the GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. The reason why those medications have become so successful is because they work metabolically to some degree, but the biggest benefit that they give people is that it reduces cravings. It slows gastric emptying, so it slows the process of the food through the digestive system, making an individual feel full, therefore experiencing less cravings.
Being a teacher requires being on your feet all day, but when I get to work, I can't even make it in the building into my classroom without stopping. So I kind of map my route to where I know there are chairs that I can sit in.
Yeah, the fact that she's getting that shorter breath is concerning from a cardiovascular standpoint. Like, is her heart being able to keep up with the amount of body weight she has right now? For her own safety, you want to make sure that she's capable of walking around without posing a risk to her heart.
By the time I get to my room, I'm so physically wiped out. And I'm starving. But I'm constantly around food. And if I run out, it's usually around lunchtime. I do look at the food in front of me and say, I don't need it, but it's good, so I just want to keep eating.
You know, people talk about food addiction, whether it's real or not. If you're in a situation where you need food to this degree where you're overeating, you hate that you want the food, you know that your body doesn't need the food, it's presenting other health hazards to your life. Whether or not a medical textbook says it's an addiction, in layman's terms at least, it feels like an addiction.
Cynthia is over 600 pounds. And it's quite remarkable that she can take care of 5 children at that weight.
It just shows how motivated she is to take care of those children, because it's difficult on her breathing, it's difficult on her heart, on her joints, and yet she's still showing up day in and day out.
You're a mom and you have responsibility to your kids. So from this point on, we are going to make changes in your eating habit.
This is a very old school way of doctoring, where you tell a patient that you have children, you need to do better for them, and you try and lecture a patient. But in most instances, the way that you get a patient to where they want to be is by asking them the questions and getting them to a place where they say, I need to do this for my kids. Just the fact that they vocalized it rather than you did will already go further in their success rate.
You know how the homework was. You need to stick with the low-carb diet and eat only 3 times a day and no snacking. This will be a 1,200 calorie a day diet.
I don't know how they expect her to go from eating what she's eating to a 1,200 calorie diet 3 times a day. I just feel like you're setting up a person for failure on that. She's gonna have massive cravings, especially with the difficulties of her job. It's gonna make her sad. It's gonna make her uncomfortable.
What is your ability to do exercise and walk?
And you want her to exercise and walk with 1,200 calories? I mean, it's just completely unreasonable.
I really don't do a lot of walking.
Or how much you can walk before you feel tired and give up?
Maybe like from here to your waiting room.
She should really be working with a nutritionist to figure out what she's already consuming and make changes from there, as opposed to getting a cookie cutter 1,200 calorie recommendation and telling her to exercise when she's never exercised before. It's just gonna be a major shock to the system. I think even the most well-intentioned patient is gonna struggle with that.
If we stick with this diet, you should be able to lose 30 pounds in 1 month. And if you can make these changes, weight loss surgery could be an option for you down the road.
Okay.
I get why they're trying to get her to lose 5% of her body fat to make sure that once the surgery is complete that there will be a level of success. But doing it in the way that he prescribed it, it just doesn't seem like you're setting up someone for success. And also, he didn't tell her what to eat, didn't give any recommendations as far as macronutrients. Look, I get you don't want to confuse and overload a patient, but like, encourage protein intake. Those foods that she's eating are ultra processed in that they're gonna make her not feel full. They're gonna make her want to overeat. But if you just make recommendations about the types of foods to consume, that's gonna make it easier for her to stick to some sort of plan.
Ukiah has been offering to take walks with me and help me stay on track.
Yeah, social workouts go a long way in helping people stay consistent. When you have another person that goes to the gym with you or goes with you to do some sort of physical activity, the odds are that one of you wants to skip and then the other one encourages the other one to go. So you're kind of doubling your chances of getting a workout in.
You're making good progress, and I think you're gonna be a good candidate for weight loss surgery, okay? But you still have a BMI close to 100. So I'm gonna send you to the hospital so we can run some tests on you, make sure you are safe for anesthesia. If all those tests are good, I'll approve you for surgery.
I hate that he says it as if like he needs to approve. We'll send you to the hospital for some special tests to make sure it's safe for you to go for the surgery. Not for me to decide if it's safe. You're not deciding. The tests are deciding whether or not it's safe for the patient. It's in their best interest. It's not you gatekeeping it.
The surgery will help to prevent her from turning to food. But if she doesn't deal with some of her deeper issues, it's only a matter of time before she turns back to it.
I wonder what the rates of bariatric surgery are gonna be now that we have these GLP-1 medications with a newer generation of GLP-1 medications coming out soon.
It's been a week since my surgery. I was discharged yesterday and I'm recovering in the hotel. Right now, I've lost all cravings for food.
How's your mindset now? I mean, you got the surgery finally.
I think my feelings are numb because I've been through so much.
Yeah, at that point, it's hard to know long-term prognosis. So it's hard to know what it'll be like 2 weeks from then.
Today is your 10th day after surgery, huh?
Yep.
All right, how's everything coming along?
Great.
How is your pain and discomfort?
Don't have any.
Wow, look at that change in just a few days.
You have lost 100 pounds so far.
That's exciting.
Any different?
I do.
But I'm arranging for you to start seeing a therapist in Oklahoma City.
I like that.
Because I want you to start discussing some things with them so you can be successful in the long term.
Usually we do that before the surgery as well. I wonder if this is just outdated. Wow, that's a huge weight loss.
This has been a hard couple of months, so I'm trying to keep my mind off of food as much as possible. I've been going out to exercise and stay motivated.
See, that's the tricky thing about overeating and overconsumption of food. When someone's like, hey, quit cigarettes or quit alcohol because they're bad for you, a person can say, okay, I'm never gonna touch that again. But food, you have to consume no matter what, but overconsumption can become a problem. It's like, imagine how difficult it is if everyone that had an alcohol addiction, instead of trying to get them to quit completely, we had to get them to a place where they would only have a few drinks. See how complicated that would be?
I've decided to stop trying to live up to everyone's expectations of me, including Dr. Nails. I appreciate all the help he's given me, but I've decided if he's pushing me for therapy, I don't need to see him right now. I'm working as hard as I can, and I thought the surgery would fix everything, but it didn't.
When it comes to surgeries, they rarely heal everything. They can get you a jump start, especially when it comes to bariatric surgery. It's still gonna take a lot of work, even with GLP-1 medications. If you wanna get in good shape, you still have to exercise, you still have to watch what you're eating, change the amount of protein you're consuming, otherwise you'd lose muscle as much as you are fat. So it's not an easy road just because there is something to help you. Hoarding disorder is an actual medical condition found on DSM-5, and there is a show called Hoarders. So I thought we'd watch one of the episodes. Gotta give you a heads up, a lot of poor sanitation will be visualized here. So if you have a weak stomach, just be aware. Let's get started.
There was an anonymous neighbor who looked over the fence and saw the outside.
I'm Sean, and Shanna is my sister. I don't think anything would honestly change if it wasn't for the city posting a thing on the door.
There's a lot of ways to intervene with someone who's struggling this way, but I think it's important to figure out what exactly is going on before we start talking about violations. You have an individual who's living with very poor sanitation, and poor sanitation alone can cause problems from getting frequent infections, allergic reactions, but then there's also mechanical issues here, especially as one gets older. If you have a lot of clutter in a home, it's very easy to increase the amount of accidents you have. These are all things that impact one's health. That's interesting because when we look at research of twins, we actually see that there is some sort of heritability here, where there is a familial pass down, even though we don't know what gene codes for this yet. We've actually tried to look for it, but we've seen a genetic tie to hoarding disorder. We actually have very strict criteria that we use in DSM-5 to diagnose hoarding disorder. Hoarding disorder must meet all 6 of these criteria right here. It must be done in a very strict way, including ruling out other conditions, making sure that there's no medical condition causing these symptoms. We actually used to think of hoarding disorder as part of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, but now we've untied them and realized with research that hoarding disorder needs to stand alone on its own. So some of the research we use even to this day is based on the incorrect notion that all the participants that had hoarding disorder were also patients with OCD.
My mother used to put poop in a jug. Actually, by the time you put it in there, it's actually a dirty water jug is what that is.
That's really problematic because from a sanitation standpoint, that's how disease spreads. Fecal matter has a lot of bacteria in it. Things that if it were to enter our skin, our urinary tract, in our eyes, that can cause infection. It can lead to sepsis, overwhelming sepsis, so much so that you could lose your life.
I want to say that the reason that Shanna didn't get rid of all those bottles is because she's lazy. I hope it's not sentimental to her.
That's not medically accurate. Hoarding disorder does not stem from laziness. It usually stems from a distress of losing items, feeling that you might lose out on some value, especially with items that don't intrinsically have value. So it's kind of a misinterpretation, a cognitive distortion, if you will.
There's still some space in the toilet, but I don't want it to overflow. So I've been using a bucket.
I think the house will kill Shanna if she doesn't get out of there.
Like I said earlier, if there's a fire in here, there's a lot of flammable objects that are at high risk for catching on fire. Then also mechanically, you could fall. You could fall into the feces. That's a bacterial infection. You're knocked unconscious, you're bleeding, you're getting infected. That's an easy way for someone to lose their life. Who's Matt?
I'm Matt Paxton. I'm an extreme cleaning specialist. So man, hold on a second. Let me take this in.
This house is disgusting. It's
hands down the worst smelling house I've ever smelled in my life.
Remember, a lot of the smell is driven by bacteria excrement, meaning when bacteria eat on substances, it actually releases an odor. That's why if you notice, if you wear a cotton shirt to the gym, it usually doesn't smell as bad. That's because it absorbs water, not oil from your skin. Whereas the polyester substances like the Under Armours, the Nike compression gear, all that stuff, that actually traps oils in it. And then the bacteria feed on that, and that bacteria makes it smell much worse. So if you smell someone's gym bag who had compression gear in it, it smells very differently, and that's because of the bacteria being different and what they're eating being different.
Okay, now this is not the worst hoard you've ever cleared out.
Sanitarily, this is a really dangerous house. She's eating 2 feet from all the poop and urine.
Do you think I meet the definition of a hoarder?
Hell yes.
Well, she asked hoarder, not hoarding disorder, but it's important to let a medical professional make that diagnosis. And the fact that she doesn't see this being as big of a problem as it visibly is shows that there's potentially a lack of insight. And depending on the amount of insight patients have, they may be more apt to taking action or allowing others to help them in a situation. And what's unique about hoarding disorder is there's a wide variability here. There's some patients who know this is a real problem, but it's what I have to deal with. And some patients that are saying full on, I don't know, this looks fine. This is how I live.
The more time I'm spending with her, I'm realizing she may not be able to make a lot of good decisions.
What he's pointing out, maybe in not the most subtle way, is that there is a lack of insight into the situation.
What is the main cause of the smell?
Musty odor, having to do with mold and dust.
Yeah, musty odor is a sign for mold. In fact, going in and doing a visual inspection of a home, smelling it, like olfactory senses, like visualization, olfactory, is more reliable than doing spore counts. If you see mold, you don't need to do a spore count. If you smell mold and you don't see it, you can do a spore count. But that goes to show how strong our senses are to mold. It's like a true chemical detector right there in your face.
No.
No?
It's the feces and urine that's in the house.
I don't think this is an either or situation. I think the fire risk, the mechanical fall risk, the feces, the urine, the mold, check.
Is that brand new information to you? To think that the feces and urine has something to do with the smell?
I guess so, because I thought it was due to the mold and dust.
Well, perhaps there's some sort of cognitive situation here. I don't know her medical history. It's why I didn't comment on making a diagnosis. If first-line treatment, which is cognitive behavioral therapy specific for hoarding disorder, fails, you get to a point where you actually do some cognitive remediation, where you try and re-educate patients on things like this.
I'm Dr. Robin Sazio. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I specialize in OCD and compulsive hoarding.
This has never been opened.
This is covered in mold.
It might be a little bit moldy because I don't have a freezer.
So the problem with moldy bread is it's not like a moldy berry. If you have a plate of berries and one of them is moldy, you throw it away, no problem. But the fungal spores actually put out their like tentacles, if you will, and go across the whole bread, and you never know which section has mold in it and doesn't.
Everything in the bathroom is contaminated.
The toothbrushes, though, are covered in something plastic.
Nothing in this room can be safe.
Oh boy.
I've never cleaned a bathroom like this.
Remember, when you're manipulating all these materials, you're aerosolizing all these particles in the air. You gotta wear masks and you gotta be careful.
I almost pierced my respirator. I had to get out of there. There's hundreds of bottles of human waste. The different colors. Watching it slosh around, I started going through the respirator. That was too much.
If it's going through the respirator, that means the respirator is not well fit, because even when we do our respirator fit testing, they spray certain chemicals and we see if we can smell them. If you can, that means it's not well fit.
And I'm going to go ahead and eat some of the contaminated food, and then the party's over. Because I have to get it, because when somebody goes on intervention, they want to get high one last time. The party ends for me tomorrow.
How is eating contaminated food a party?
I've been eating poop for 12 years.
Oh, she says that? Wow. I think she means it more probably from an aspect of it's aerosolized, it's everywhere. More so than she's actually consuming human waste.
You're getting a high out of thinking that you've got fecal matter in your food.
It's my last blaze of glory.
I mean, it's not about you sitting there and judging her. Like, I hate these shows for this. This is about understanding that this person actually has a condition and getting help. And there's legitimate surveys and questionnaires we can give to patients that are either self-reported or the doctor can fill out or the family member can fill out. These questionnaires and surveys are well validated to come to a conclusion of a diagnosis.
She's very well aware that she could be ingesting fecal matter into her body and getting pleasure from it. That is disturbing.
Why the judgmental statement? It's dangerous or it's not dangerous. It's problematic and we need to act or we don't act. The editorialization of these things is not needed. And in fact, that's when patients pull back and feel judged by providers.
Okay, so look at me. This is the end of you pooping in a bucket. Every time you're gonna go to the bathroom, where are you gonna go?
In the toilet.
Exactly.
I would love to see just a sit-down interview asking the patient some questions. How does she feel about this? What does she understand? What does she not understand? I feel like that's missing in this episode.
What seems to have happened is in living with mom, as mom's functioning started to decline, as the house started to decline, she rolled with the changes and she didn't question it.
When it comes to treatment of hoarding disorder, most of it is focused around psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, mutual help groups, and there are instances where pharmacotherapy, medications are used, but it's actually not well researched. We don't have good answers. There's no algorithmic treatment plan for it. So a lot of it is targeted at symptoms, at comorbidities, and not so much for hoarding disorder specifically. More research desperately needs to be done on that, and not on patients who have OCD and they're classified as having a hoarding problem, but more so those who have a clear hoarding disorder, which is the new DSM-5 criteria.
I've made a professional opinion that she's not capable of living alone. Not because she is a compulsive hoarder, it's because cognitively she can't live alone. We've got to figure out a plan B.
Getting the family involved is great. Social support is very valuable. It's one of the defining factors of any psychiatric health condition. You can even get social support services and adult protective services involved. But ultimately, in order to tell a patient what to do, they need to lack the ability to give consent, be a danger to oneself, and you need to seek a court order to appoint someone to make decisions for them. This is a lengthy and not easy process because we want to protect patient autonomy and make sure that people don't take advantage of others. So for example, I've had some patients that their family wasn't taking good care of them and I knew they were at risk, but it's not because they were doing something bad to the family member, just they weren't paying adequate attention to them. And as a result, there's not much I can do. I can call Adult Protective Service, they can make recommendations, but ultimately it's up to the patient to accept that service or for a court order to be issued. Let's react to TLC show Extreme Cheapskates. I don't really like the title and some of these are actually quite unhealthy, but some actually make some sense.
I'm going to be making a lasagna. By any chance, if you have any other ground beef that's already left over?
It's all sold. We sell it on a daily basis, fresh all the time.
Okay, and so there's nothing that would expire?
Oh, no,
or
man.
about to expire?
No, man. We don't sell expired product here.
You don't want to sell expired beef because expired beef will literally have listeria, E. coli, all sorts of bacteria in it that can cause a really serious colitis, requiring IV antibiotics, requiring a hospital stay, possibly a surgery, a colectomy where you're cutting out pieces of your intestine. Like, you don't want that.
How much would 2 pounds of the beef fat be?
$2.53, ma'am.
I will take the beef fat.
So instead of using protein, she's just using the beef fat?
By supplementing the meat with the beef fat, Stephanie saved 75% on the ingredients for her lasagna.
But then you're changing the nutritional makeup of the food completely. Like when you go to a store and you buy 80% ground beef, that means it's 80% lean and 20% fat. Here, now you've changed the proportions to be like the other way, like 20% protein and 80% fat. That's terribly unhealthy, like probably the unhealthiest thing you can do to the food. Like red meat on its own already has some troubles when you overeat it and then you create heart disease. This is like quadrupling that problem.
Now to save money, I multitask with washing dishes and cooking meals with my dishwasher.
Oh, no.
I just gotta make sure I wrap it really well or else the food will get wet.
With the dishwasher reaching a temperature of 170 degrees, the lasagna will be fully cooked in 1.5 hours.
No, because you don't know if the temperature is like that all across, unlike an oven where it's controlled. The pennies that you're saving here will pale in comparison to the one time that you get sick and your hospital bills are out of control. That's what I'm trying to say, that it's not that I'm judging this process, it's just not a practical process, it's not a healthy process. process. Ideally, this should be changed.
Yeah, it's good, right?
To be cooked in a dishwasher? The lounge tastes like water.
Yeah, and the kid rightfully said no. If I had a patient that was doing that, I would seriously discuss whether or not we can change that, and if the patient was not receptive to it, there may be a conversation about getting some people involved to go check on the welfare of those children.
I go dumpster diving in the trash of upscale grocery stores in New York. These stores often throw away a lot of very high quality foods.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Including organic foods and really nice prepared foods.
And there's a lot of these stores in New York that have relationships with food banks so that they don't make waste of this food and they can feed our homeless population in New York. Just what they don't want to have happen is constantly people just waiting outside of their restaurants, because then it creates a pattern where then it might demotivate some individuals from actually going to a shelter, seeking refuge, getting the proper help that they might need, etc.
I'm guessing these tomatoes got thrown out probably because they're among a bunch that had maybe one or two that were spoiled. So often the store would just throw the whole batch out.
It's not like bread. When there's a piece of mold in any part of the bread, you got to throw the whole thing out. With tomatoes or berries, you could just get rid of the ones that have mold on them.
There is a chicken asparagus with two sides here. My friends might like this, even though I don't like chicken. This is dated today.
What is it?
These are some the vegetables with turkey and chicken, mashed potatoes. And then this is a chicken fried rice.
So everything's in the same pot? Turkey?
Yeah, this is a medley.
I actually like eating foods in a medley, and my friends make fun of me of it. They're like, Mike, you're eating at a horse trough. But I like it that way. That's why I get Chipotle burrito bowls. They didn't seem too fond of it, but that has nothing to do with her saving money. She's just not a good cook. If my friends came over and asked me to cook for them, they'd probably make the same face.
In the past 6 years, Mark has volunteered in more than 100 medical studies, and the riskier the trial, the better it pays.
Well, actually, I'm not gonna even say that this is a bad thing, because we need more volunteers for our research.
2 studies that I'm waiting on that I have not been in yet is a flatline study. This is a really good one. What they do is they stop your heart for 1 minute, but you still breathe. Stay there 14 days, pays $25,000. But the FDA kind of stepped in and stopped that.
Whoa, you flatline for a minute and they keep you breathing and then bring back your pulse through epinephrine? My God, I can't even imagine.
The second one that I'm really anxious and really excited and waiting to do, what you do is you go in and you donate one of your testicles, they replace it with an artificial one, and when you check out after 14 days, you get a check for $35,000.
That's an expensive testicle. $35,000 per testicle? I never knew that there was a study that did that. Not all studies are this dramatic. A lot of them are more for medications that are well-known, well-tolerated, just kind of comparing different patient populations. That's why I recommend everyone visit clinicaltrials.gov to learn more.
Mark participates in so many clinical trials that he gets free checkups every month to see if he's a good candidate for each study.
So a checkup that's seeing if you're a good candidate doesn't always mean that you're getting a good checkup, a good preventive visit. During a visit, you don't just get a checkup, you also get active risk assessment and then advice on those risks. So this isn't a replacement for a checkup.
So what I'd like for you to do is take off your shirt.
Okay.
And I'll come back in and we'll do a brief exam.
Okay.
Okay, and also, I gotta check out your gyms.
Okay.
So we'll take a look at that too.
See, I like that the doctor's laying out exactly what's gonna happen during the visit before doing it, because I see a lot of young doctors and older doctors alike rushing through these procedures, not getting the patient enough time to mentally prepare, to physically prepare for what's gonna happen, whatever the exam might be.
Being a lab rat, you have to be very healthy. Your labs have to be in certain ranges and levels, in a healthy level, to be a healthy control.
When he says a healthy control, that means he's probably in the group that's being held at a constant and not be given the experimental treatment. The thing is, with randomized controlled studies, which is the gold standard of scientific evidence, you want to be blinding not just the researchers, but also the patients, meaning not knowing who's getting the true treatment and who's in the control arm. So in a double-blind study, he wouldn't know if he's in the control group or not.
Your heart sounds regular, and I don't hear any extra beats.
So what we're listening, when we listen with the stethoscope to the heart, you want to make sure that the rate is consistent, not too fast, not too slow. It has to be a regular rate, not irregular. That could be a sign of an arrhythmia, like AFib is a common one, atrial flutter is another. But then you're also listening for the flow of blood. That's when we can detect something known as a murmur, which is how blood flows through the different chambers of the heart or different arteries. And when we hear certain sounds, that murmur, depending on which location we hear it, where it it's most intense, we can then decide the area that we're most concerned about. So like all these things need to be taken into consideration, and then we could order further testing like an echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of the heart to visualize exactly what we're going on. And usually if you're really good with the stethoscope, you can predict what you're gonna see on an EKG or an echocardiogram because it's a great tool.
Drop your drawers, and we just kind of, you know, examine both testicles. We rub them between our two fingers.
You want to use more medical terminology rather than layperson terminology because that can make people feel uncomfortable. When you're doing it, you also want to visualize the area. So a lot of the times I see on these shows, they're doing stuff like this, like they're almost looking up and not looking at the region that they're making contact with. Then you could miss all sorts of rashes, hair conditions, masses that you might see with your vision, not with your touch. Overall, it's an incomplete physical exam in my eyes.
Low testosterone levels affect roughly 39% of men. A low test result for Mark would take him out of the running for the testicular study.
The risk to you is pretty significant. I'm not endorsing the surgery.
Mark's test results are well below the acceptable range set for the clinical trial.
When you're seeing a primary care doctor like myself and you're going in for a preoperative clearance, we're not deciding if the surgery is right for you. We're deciding your risk for the procedure and if there's any way we can optimize your medical state or your health in order for you to have decreased likelihood of adverse effects from the surgery.
Maybe going on testosterone replacement would be a great thing for you.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about doing that?
Well, how about asking him if he has issues that could show that his low testosterone is clinically significant as opposed to just an asymptomatic lab finding? Like an asymptomatic lab finding is not always necessary to be treated, especially men of an older age. Like this is where you gotta be really careful with these hormone replacement clinics. And I'm not saying anything specifically about this one because this might not be showing the whole visit, but just in general to keep in your back of your mind.
While it doesn't pay as much as the testicular removal study, Mark does manage to land a spot in a trial testing testosterone replacement.
Each one of these pills represents to me a car insurance payment. $75 every Monday, cash, $50 every Tuesday, $125 a week, times 4, $500 a month equals my rent and my car payment.
Your rent and your car payment's $500? That's very reasonable.
One of the main things that I look for when I go dumpster diving now are medications, especially prenatal vitamins.
Okay, very dangerous, specifically when it comes to medications, because a lot of times medications are not in correct pill bottles and may not be labeled correctly, and therefore you may not know their expiration date or their dosage, and that presents a whole host of problems.
I think expiration dates in general are kind of,
I'm not sure what she means by but there is some truth to the fact that a good amount of the medications, if stored properly, could be good past their expiration date for a short period of time. And the reason why I say that is because there was actually a study done by the government to see that the medications that were stored in the military bases, they were stored in correct locations with the correct conditions. 5 years after, some of them were still effective. And the ones that were expired past that time were just less effective. They kind of lost their efficacy. And you have to think as a doctor, when is that dangerous? That's dangerous if you're thinking about taking expired emergency medications like epinephrine, insulin. These are medications that if they're not effective, you're in danger. Taking an expired Tylenol, the real risk of it is that it might not work. But taking expired epinephrine when you're having an anaphylactic attack means that you can die. You see how there's a difference there?
a lot of times they put expiration dates on things way earlier than they need to just to sell more products.
That's not the case. It's done in a way that you need to understand common use. And when you think of common use, most people do not properly store their medications. They frequently store them in the bathroom, which is a high humidity environment, which is not good for any medication. Medications that are like in gels and in liquid form tend to be even shorter expiration dates, meaning they're good for a shorter period of time because they're more likely to go bad.
Bingo! It's folic acid, which is good for pregnancy.
I mean, folic acid is important for pregnancy. It's advised by the AAFP and the CDC that individuals who are considering getting pregnant or are pregnant take 0.4 milligrams to 0.8 milligrams, which is 400 micrograms to 800 micrograms of folic acid as a way to decrease the likelihood of neurologic defects occurring during pregnancy.
Every dollar we spend on anything other than food is a waste.
Wow.
I don't see the need to spend money on furniture. I'm a floor guy. I sit on the floor, and it's very comfortable.
I mean, to each their own. Like, this isn't a medical issue here.
What I did was I found some 2x4s, and these are styrofoam peanuts. So I just take all the peanuts, throw them in there, and then I cover it up with bubble wrap, and then this is a tablecloth, and it makes a perfect bed.
I mean, I just don't know if I would go to say perfect bed. I could see a lot of those like foam peanuts move around, and then as a result, you're laying on the hard floor and putting pressure on your shoulder that you could wake up with quite the painful rotator cuff or labrum.
To find good roadkill on the road, and if it's fresh, and good, I'm a butcher. I have no problem whatsoever eating something that's fresh and good.
I mean, this person's a butcher, so at least they have some experience on whether or not certain foods are safe to eat. It doesn't seem ideal given that it's not controlled how these things die. Did a car run over it? Did it eat some poison, then die, then a car ran over it? You know what I'm saying?
Tonight we're serving barbecued rabbit and a tossed salad made with flowers that we've gathered.
I mean, you could just grow vegetables. Like you can go to an apple tree orchid and pull an apple off of it and eat it and know that it's an apple versus like I can't even begin to guess the nutritional facts on a dandelion.
It was weeds, all weeds, dandelions, flowers, clovers, things that you just don't normally eat.
Yeah, again, I don't know the nutrition facts of those things, but it doesn't seem safe. Or necessary, that's the goal here.
One little thing, a little discovery that I've made, way to save on coffee. I enjoy my coffee in the morning. I have
Me too.
made my own little coffee device out of an old sock.
You couldn't use a shirt, you went for the sock? They definitely asked for this on the show. I hear the producers already. He's like, I use a piece of cloth. They're like, can you use a sock?
I developed a method with rubber bands to keep my soap levitated off of that water. It lets it dry, it prevents mildew, and my soap lasts double the amount of time it would normally last.
I'm with it, another one that I'm with.
I'm probably saving between $80 and $100 a year just on soap alone.
I love it. We're about to watch Our Little Family, which follows the everyday lives of the Hamill family, who happen to be little people. And I'm joined today by the lovely Pamela Ray Schuler.
I'm a comedian, keynote speaker, and disability advocate.
We are a family of 5, and what makes us so special is that we are all small. We're raising our kids to know life can be just as good small as it is tall.
I remember the last time I lost my tooth, do you?
No.
I put it under the pillow.
For the tooth fairy.
And then my dad's like, I'm not giving you any money. And I said, what about the tooth fairy though? He said, we're Russian immigrants with no money. What up, Hamels? Have you seen the show?
No.
Me either.
I'm in it. I'm into it, not in it.
Oh, I was gonna say, you're in it.
We have twin daughters, and they are about to turn 3. Their names are Cece and Kate, and they are the complete opposite of Jack. They are very high maintenance.
Yes.
That's like you.
I agree fully, which is why the twins are my favorite people already.
What's unique about our family is that we are all small and that we all have the most common form of dwarfism, which is achondroplasia.
Achondroplasia, you heard of it?
Yes.
Achondroplasia is when you have a defect in changing cartilage into bone. Because when we're born, we actually have a lot of cartilage that needs to ossify, AKA turn into bone. Those who have achondroplasia have normal sized torsos, usually, and then have shorter than normal limbs, upper and lower.
That makes sense. So I'm 4'6.5". So I'm of short stature, but I don't have a specific diagnosis like achondroplasia. I really think I just forgot to grow.
Okay, well that happens.
I'm little, my kids are little, I'm very proud to be a little person. We're all little together.
I think there's like a lot of these views that people with disabilities and differences are like sitting home sad and wishing our differences away. In addition to being 4'6.5", I have Tourette syndrome, and I think for a lot of us, we've embraced the heck out of what makes us us. And personally, I don't wish to not be different, but I do sometimes wish that the world was created a little bit more with disabilities and differences in mind.
Jack just started kindergarten, and he's riding the bus with all the other kids because we don't want him to feel any different.
Is there any dangers? I don't see any dangers.
No.
You know, I will say though, the development of children who are born with achondroplasia, there's an issue with where the brainstem turns into the spinal cord.
Oh.
It's called the cervical medullary junction. Can sometimes be more narrow. So when you pick up a child that has achondroplasia diagnosis, you need to be careful and really support the back of their head so that it doesn't go back because they can have injury.
No one should let me hold kids without, like, just at all.
When 2 little people have kids, they have a 50% chance that the baby will be little. Then we have a 25% chance that the baby will be average size. Then we have a 25% chance that the baby will inherit the dwarfism gene from both of us. And if the baby inherits that gene from both of us, they call it a double dominant baby. And after it's born, it doesn't live very long.
In medical textbooks, it usually says someone who is homozygous for this condition is incompatible with life. I would say there's a possibility that they can be born and sustain life early on, but then they usually end up passing.
Same day that I found out that I was pregnant with twins, I also found out that I had a medical complication, that there was a blood clot in the middle of the two babies.
Blood clot in the middle of the two babies. I'm guessing in the umbilical vein. That's really rare.
They had told me that if that blood clot were to break within my first trimester, I could lose either one or both of those babies.
In general, pregnancy creates a higher risk for having blood clots. That's a known risk.
Okay.
But having twins elevates that risk even more, specifically later in the pregnancy.
Luckily, we were blessed that the babies got bigger and the blood clot got smaller.
Oh, yeah.
But then we had to test to see if they had the double dominant gene. First, we found out that Cece was going to be little.
And a girl.
Just wait. That's the most important. And then we knew that she was healthy and it was going to be a girl.
Do you think about or care about if you have a child, what their height is going to be?
No, I'd be more afraid that they'd be athletic. Like, I can raise a kid of any height. I can raise a kid with Tourette's. But, like, what am I going to go to a basketball game?
Well, you can watch.
It's really common for little people to have a fear of dogs.
I don't like that.
I wonder how they'd feel about Bear. Bear.
We're
Bear.
best friends.
Hi, high five.
Oh, he has to get his whole body
he
up.
has to do. Oh,
Can I get one too, bud? Oh, thank you.
Can I get one?
Thank you, buddy.
Can I get one? One more? High five.
He's like, Dad, I
Please.
gave you 10 already.
Just one more. High five.
My turn.
Oh, you love it more. You're a traitor.
You're my best boy.
You're a traitor.
Average size people really don't think about it, but imagine if dogs were the size of bears and they were coming up to you.
Did she say size of bears?
Does he carry a stool? Because you used to have a stool from first grade through, 8th grade.
I live in a studio apartment in New York City and I have 6 stools in one apartment.
Really?
I can't reach my microwave because in New York they put them above your oven, stove, whatever that thing is. In my closet, I can't reach 80% of it. I have a stool there. I have one in my bathroom because most of the storage is above the sink. In my living room, I've got one because my bed is a normal size bed and I have to run and jump into it. And sometimes you don't want to be an acrobat.
Today we are meeting Jack's teacher, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what she's going to say. Does he ever sit there and go, "Oh, Mrs. Claiborne, I can't see"?
He told the boys and girls, "You guys need to move over because I cannot even do the rectangle rumba." So he moved himself to the front and stood right in front of the...
Good self-advocacy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something we should be working with all kids, not just kids with disabilities and differences. Like, how do you speak up if you're not getting what you need to be successful? I talk a lot about disability inclusion, but in reality, we all need different things at different times to be successful.
You have to be that high? You can go to the left, Jack, I think. And then I think the girls need to go to the right.
It's the same thing. It goes to the same place.
At the Bouncy Pillow, we had to make a decision. Do we send Jack with people his own age, or do we send him with the people his own size?
It's saying by height.
Yes.
So why are we trying to create a new interpretation?
Because he might want to play with his friends.
Fair. The reason I worry about this, and the reason I'm being strict about it, is because if you're like in an amusement park and there's these signs about height, it's because of safety and security of the seatbelts and locking mechanisms.
I get it. I can't ride half those
worry about
rides.
that. Really?
I'm too short to ride half the rides.
I can't either because of my fear. Why are you laughing at me?
Sorry.
That's not fair.
You made it sound like you can't for like an accessible reason.
That is an accessible reason.
No, it's a mental health reason.
That's accessible.
Okay, fine.
Can we have some cookies? Thank you so much. I'm living in an average size world. It's not going to adapt to me. I have to figure out how to adapt to the world. How about these? Look. Come here. Why don't we do these?
My grocery store in New York City refers to me as the climber. At one point, they were like, you have to stop climbing. And I was like, okay, then you either need to have step stools that are available to me or have someone who is available to reach the things down. Because in New York, we build up.
Yeah.
And so I can't reach 70% of the things I need at a grocery store.
So what did they say to you?
They told me they would have someone help me and I still climb.
Oh.
Because I was just born small.
So why you do just the same size?
Because we were both born small.
I love that about children, that they're not afraid. They're just being genuine.
Yes.
I think that's the most authentic and genuine way to go about it.
I agree. Kids have questions because they're learning about the world. And if we shush a kid when they have questions, we're teaching them to feel shame in the presence of disability. So while not everyone is comfortable explaining to a kid maybe why they're little or why they twitch or why they use a wheelchair, for people who are, it's great because we're giving kids information, and kids, I think, are inclusive when they get it.
Whenever I'm more honest about what I don't know and what I can learn, the more engagement I get.
I wish more doctors did that. I wish more
Well,
doctors
it's
would be
scary.
like, I don't actually know a lot about Tourette's. Can you tell me, Bam? If you put me in a room with 10,000 people who are 4'6.5" and have a whole lot of Tourette syndrome, every single one of us would have a totally different story.
It'd be cool to build one sometime in our yard or something. That would be
A playset?
on totally equal grounds. Like, just design it so he doesn't know it's any different, but he could climb up as fast as the other kids or whatever, you know what I mean?
You mean for you to build it?
Yeah.
Wow. Disrespectful laugh.
I love that, like, yeah, this show's about a family of little people, but it's also just about, like, a family.
Yeah, exactly.
And
They talk smack
that
to
was
each
like
other.
a sick burn.
The challenge of building this play set is I have to make things spaced a little bit closer together for Jack, but I also want to space it in a way that every other kid in the work can use it too, and it's not exclusively for him.
Great example of universal design. Universal design is this idea that as we create anything, a building, a community, a structure, a phone, a tool, we create it with the goal of as many people as possible being able to use it at the fullest extent possible.
Okay.
So
Give me
really,
an example of that besides this.
when you go to open a door and there's a button and the door opens automatically, that was initially designed for people who use wheelchairs. But think about someone carrying groceries. Think about someone carrying kids. Think about someone who maybe doesn't have use of their hands or arms. You do something for one or two and it's often beneficial for so many more.
I was born and raised in Annapolis. I have never really left. I stay here because no one sees me as a little person anymore.
Michelle. Describe the I just heard.
It's just an interesting way to, I think, I'm trying to figure out like the best way to say this. I think it's okay to see disability. She is of short stature. She's a little person. I think what she probably means, or I'm never gonna put
People
words in her mouth.
don't judge her for
Don't treat her differently.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Probably. Like I think
Yeah.
I don't
Of
want to.
course, I think.
I actually don't love it when someone is like, when I'm with you, Pam, I don't see Tourette's anymore. I bark. Like, yes, you
I
do.
take advantage of that when I'm with you.
Push! Yes! Some average-sized people think that little people can't work out, and that's a total myth.
Dude, you work out harder than me, except when I'm boxing training for professional fight. I'm doing a lot more. But otherwise, your baseline of working out is insane.
Thank you. I love working out. And the gym is made for men of average height. The elliptical, I was told I'm too short to use. I'm too short to use any of the bikes. The things that you pull down, I can't even reach it.
As a little person, I'm really lucky that I don't have any physical complications that cause me not to be able to do what I physically want to do.
Those with achondroplasia have higher rates of osteoarthritis, so they can have a lot of joint pain, and it could be very painful. Also, those with achondroplasia, especially kids, have higher rates of frequent middle ear infections, early development of sleep apnea.
Huh.
There's things you have to, what we call in medicine is give anticipatory guidance.
That's interesting. I've had a ton of ear infections and no one ever told me it could be connected to something else.
See, if I was your doctor and you were my patient.
Okay.
I'll just cut yours, okay?
Oh my God, I love him.
He's going for
He
the
eats
cheese.
how I eat the
a man of
cheese.
my
I
heart.
do
We're gonna
extra
start
cheese.
eating out here. Maybe tomorrow, since we're eating pizza tonight.
The story of my life. Maybe tomorrow.
I really want the kids to have better eating habits because as little people, if you're overweight, it's more pressure on your knees, your joints, and your back.
You know what point we never made clear medically about this? If you're born with achondroplasia, there's no other medical conditions that you're diagnosed with. You still have a normal life expectancy.
Oh, that's good to know.
Michelle's taking a cooking class. The girls are taking dance. Made me kind of realize that there's something I've wanted to do for a long time.
What do you guess that he's gonna do?
What I hope it is like a magic class.
I was looking up skydiving.
Oh.
I kind of signed myself up.
You're gonna go skydiving?
There we go. Oh.
Right there. See, look, his parachute opened. I'm so relieved Dan's parachute opened. That was my biggest.
I guess that is the thing that you want to do.
There's your little boys, yep.
Hey, Jack!
My dad could do anything.
Yeah.
And doesn't have.